Hey everybody, I'm back. This time I'm playing a bass. And I just want to talk about bass playing for a second. I'm assuming about half of you out there are guitar players. And guitar players are terrible bass players. You probably know this already. And if you're not a guitar player and you're just starting off with bass, this will be equally applicable to both. The reason that guitar players have a hard time playing bass is that the job is different. Guitar players basically play to the treble, they play to the singers, they play to the upper end of the band. They're like a finish carpenter doing trim work on a house, and a bass player is more like a mason laying bricks, and the only person you're really concerned about most of the time is the drummer. And that's essentially the difference, but it's a philosophical difference, but it makes a difference in your attitude about playing. The other thing that's nice about bass, to be blunt, is that you can be very simple, but there's no place to hide on bass. You can't, guitar players can get away with a lot. Bass players can't. It's like being a trumpet player. Every little thing stands out. So you've got to be really consistent and steady, but you can be very, very simple. Now, if you don't know, if you do know, you know this already. If you don't, the bass is just like the bottom four strings on guitar. This is E, the fourth string. Third string is A, D, the second, and G, the first. So this is like the 6, 5, 4, and 3 on guitar. It's tuned the same, it's an octave lower. So E, A, D, G. So if you're fretting it, the third fret is still G. On the third string here it's C, and this is D. So a good place to start is doing very simple songs like Wild Thing and stuff like that, 3-chord tunes. I want to show you two different scales. And for right now, I'll just play a basic pulse on the one beat of a measure, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to go to C, 2, 3, D, 2, 3, 4. Now that's very simple, but you'd be surprised how well it works in the context of other people playing stuff. Being the bass player, showing up is 2/3 of the game. Just be there. That's really what it's about. And the other reason guitar players make bad bass players as a rule is they tend to play way too many notes and they tend to fill too many figures and things like that. So if I play G, my first finger here on the third fret on the bottom string, and I move over to C, G, A, B, C, that's the 4, D is the 5, and that's your basic Louie, Louie. Or Wild Thing, you make my heart sing. Any 3-chord song you can play out of this pattern. The two scales you want to work out of, and you can do a great deal with just these two, you don't need to know any more, is the standard blues scale, which you guitar players probably know. The G, the B flat with your fourth finger, C with your first, D, F, G, and then B flat again, and C. And if you don't know the notes, you don't really need to. The fingering, all in position, meaning one finger per fret, is 1, 4, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3. And there are extensions, and we don't need to worry about that right now. Just stay in this pattern. Alternate fingering here. And you might find that easier on bass to go 3 and then 1 and then slide 1 up and then 3, 1, 3. Or, to tell you the truth, most of the time on bass I tend to do that. Either way is fine. Well, I'm going to come back to this in a second. The other scale you would use is the major scale, which is the standard guitar scale, scale number 1 in the Segovia book even. It's good for 1 octave. We won't take it through 2 octaves. This works on either the 4th string, the E string, or G in this case, bottom string, or this string, the 3rd string. On guitar it will be the same. It will work on 6 and 5, 2 corresponding strings. That's the major scale, which is G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Once again, it's easier just to memorize the fingering because it's transferable. 2, 4. You're starting with the 2nd finger now on the root note. 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4. It's also true here on the 5th. 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4. Now just some things to play around with. These are some lines I'm sure you've heard. If you play a chord, without getting into the theory of it, if you just play a standard chord on bass, it usually doesn't work very well because the low frequencies tend to rumble against each other. So a bass player, instead of playing this, well, they might do it for special effects, but as a general rule, they won't play those 3 notes like that. They'll play this. They'll play it like a trumpet player, 1 note at a time. They're playing a line. So here's the 1st, 3rd note, and 5th note. The 3 notes is a triad, the 3 notes of a major chord. And this, every oldie song you ever heard in your life has this for a bass part. And if you listen carefully, any of the early stuff like Carl Perkins or Jerry Lee Lewis or Elvis or any of that, the doo-wop groups, you get that. Here's the C, back to G, up to D. I'm sliding the 2nd finger in there. And here's another variation. Very, very common. Well, the Stray Cats come to mind, or any number of jazz bands, where I'm playing the G, then I'm going to my 1st finger on the next string, and I'm coming up chromatically, 1 step, 1/2 step at a time. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Fast or slow? These are tempo. Hey, yeah. Or here's another one. Going up, coming right back down the same way. The drummer's usually going that kind of thing. Here's another one. Flat 7th. If I play the major scale, I'm not going to that note, I'm going to that note. It's the 7 in G7. And you've heard this plenty of times here. Don't forget, Paul McCartney started out as a guitar player, so it worked out pretty well for him. It can be done. Which reminds me, let me see. It's Miles Davis, Your Blues, which is, I think, the largest selling jazz album of all time, and it's very blues-based, which is one of the reasons why. Okay, those are just, or here, it's just any number of figures. Here's the most famous bass line ever written, and it's a really good one to practice. 2, 4, 1, 4, 1, 4. I think it was the Temptations' first hit, right? I got sunshine, that kind of thing, right? These are good to practice because they work your reach out. You have to fret a little further apart on bass. You've got to stretch out a little bit to play it. So that's some good stuff to start with. with major scales.